Now it's time for the really exciting stuff, for Optimism in Action. So we're very happy to have with us now a familiar face. He's been keeping very busy fighting the good fight, and it's the lovely Matt Hocking. So here with us today to tell us all about the work he's been doing recently and the return of Good First 2022. So how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I was looking forward to getting together. First time you and I, well, we've met obviously through other things, but yeah, actually being interviewed and having some chat time with you. So yeah, I mean, I've been a bit absorbed obviously in the politics. I don't normally go near the news because it's just full of bad news. So to be optimistic sometimes we got to kind of, for me, ignore certain things and just go with what the gut feels. But yeah, been very interested in what's been happening recently.
Yeah, it's been intense as well, hasn't it? Like the lead up. So this morning I was on here and we were doing the news stories and it was all there and I was like, oh, okay, it's all done. And then last minute we got in that he was going to do like a resigning speech and we were like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Like, oh, it's happening.
No.
And all of the newspaper headlines just before that were all saying the exact same things and they definitely wanted him to leave and all of this stuff. So it was like, then it just all came to a head really fast. So I can totally get where you've been absorbed in it because I think all of us have kind of gone, what is happening?
And it's easy to get distracted. I know it is a big thing, but then there's the stuff I believe in, which is, taking individual action for what we might do with our voice and our own activism to what, we do in Leap as a business to, make a difference. So I kind of go, actually, that's where I can be empowered and our team can be empowered. The politics, I can vote and I can put my beliefs and that forwards, but I've got less control there. So again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do like Optimism in Action was kind of like I don't know if you're aware, but it came out of the fact of like Joan Baez quote of like the antidote to despair is action. And in a time where for me my feeds are filled with burning, some of the most poor regions of the world really suffering from the effects of what the Western world have made happen to the environment through our kind of love of fuel and plastic and CO2 output. And so it's kind of like that's so big and overwhelming. I just wanted to be able to take little things and say to other people as well that even just taking a little action, helping someone or writing to your MP or doing a tweet or something like that to sort of state your voice is important. It kind of, you said about how you're feeling, then that gives you that little bit of buzz.
Yeah, because I think your feelings are almost validated by these little things. And then when you see that, oh, actually, no, I am making a little difference no matter how small it might be.
Yeah.
So would you say that, do you have any like examples of stuff if someone was like, oh, I'm really worried about this, but I don't really know where to start. What changes could I make if I wanted to make an impact?
It's a really good question. So for me, it's what's sustainable to you as well. And so you've got to look at, like if I was to suddenly change to, I don't know, kind of more reusable items, that's quite expensive for some. So it's kind of like working. So what can you do in your own home for yourself to make a difference? So, an easy one is, always like, do you really need to get in a car? Could you do a walk? And so the benefits of walk is it saves some money, it saves the environment, and it's healthier for you. So that half an hour walk, but obviously then you've got to allocate time. And we know if somebody's like a parent that might have to do a school run, is it feasible? So it's kind of going what works for you. And we can't, I put solar panels on my house, about 8 years ago. And it took me about 3 years going, do I? Because I had to get a loan to do it from the bank.
Okay.
But I'm so glad I did. And actually, once you take that step and go, God, I'm going to have debt for a while. But then it paid off. And then I saw, like in the summer months, I got a little bit of return. And now with the energy crisis, although, we've got these higher fees that are coming in for all of us, I get a return. So although my bills have gone up to like 150 quid a month, at this time of year, because of solar, I'm getting £100 off as well. So it's actually costing me £50 a month.
That's good, so it's kind of equaling out for you.
Yeah, but not everyone can get a loan. And it was a big step for me. I do not like debt. My own mum lost a house to the bank in the early 90s and stuff. And, has been in the council home ever since. So money and, had all our assets taken from her. So I think from my childhood, there's a slight fear of that kind of thing.
I think there would be, in it, because that's quite a traumatic experience to go through in itself.
Yeah.
Watching a parent kind of go through that, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I didn't actually understand it, but obviously Mum talks about her house and just the mistakes that happened. They had their own business as well. I run my own business, and with running my own business, I have a lot of care for our team who you've met. For me, I had 4 redundancies in my design career, and I wanted to create as a business a kind of like a safe harbour for our team.
So for those of you, so lots of people might not know who are here today because I've got a
I'm
few
just, like,
newbies.
talking.
There's a few newbies in the chat.
Yeah.
So kind of tell us what you do, who you are, what your role is, what exactly do you do?
Well, I don't even know that. I would say, I'll go into my skills. I think I'm a human signpost in life to doing things better would be my kind of like where I see myself. But at school, academically, I was all right, but art and design were my kind of love. So I've always went straight from school into just learning illustration, did like BTECs and diplomas and stuff like that. And by luck, I just ended up getting a design job without any official training. So 50% of the UK's designers have never had formal training. So I'm one of those. But some employers saw something in me, and took me on. And from there, they took my kind of this illustration world, so which is more complex, and helped me kind of make it sort of streamlined into really simple graphics and stuff, bold graphics. And I learned really well from 2 ex-Saatchi directors. And so sort of 10 years of just designing for different businesses. And design for me is like doing logos, branding, graphics on T-shirts and brochures and websites and things like that. And then I took a job as the first graphic designer for Eden in 2000. And that really changed my whole career. So beforehand, it was like earn some money and do whatever somebody wanted to be done in design. Oh, do this brochure. I didn't think about its impact on society and the planet. I just thought, how many will it sell? And will my client be happy? And will it look good for me as well? Quite basic thoughts kind of thing. And so at Eden, although they didn't tell me what I had to do as their first designer, you kind of always look at your client and go, actually, what's best for them? So I started understanding about how print works in the world. And 70% of the world's paper in some ways goes through the hand of a designer. And actually in our human world, designers are behind everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing out there that hasn't been designed. We've got natural design. We might be biomimicry, where we copy something in nature. But ultimately, anything human, a designer's been there at some point. And so it's kind of really going, oh, wow. So actually, I've got more power, more control than I thought. So mine's always been kind of like, after that, I kind of switched to like people and planet first. And then, yes, luckily, I got a wage out of it as well.
Well, that's good.
And then it was always kind of like around that making a living, making a difference. It must be the same for you, like being here, And that, for me, I always use this term, it gives you like an enormous sense of well-being. It fills you with, it's not the easiest sometimes because you're dealing with some pretty hard areas of society and the environment. But at the same time, to know that every hour, every minute, we're making a difference is real joy kind of thing. So so graphic design with the environment in mind.
Love it. I love that. And it's just so important now. And it's just become, over the last few years, it's really blown up.
Yes.
Hasn't it?
Yeah.
What's your experience been with that, with the just resurgence of it? It's just been crazy, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, we're slow. We're slow there, but like anything, it's you got your first followers and stuff like that, where they just go, oh, that's the way. So when we set Leap up in 2004, people were going, oh, how can you run a business that only works for the environment? I was like, don't know, never run a business. But that's what my values say is the right thing to do. And, luckily for us, people found us and go, oh, we've been looking for a business like you. And some of those clients like Good Energy have stayed with us ever since as well, which is amazing, as well as people coming to work for us. But yeah, there's been a real, you're seeing it everywhere. This kind of like, we're a purpose brand, we're a purpose business. I struggle a little bit with the purpose thing. It's because I always think, well, did you not have a purpose already? I guess the purpose was to make money, and now the purpose is to make a difference and make money. So I think for me, it's great to see that everyone kind of jumping in to support society and the environment, but I do feel there's more we can do, and to really think and challenge the way we do stuff. Saying that, I've arrived here in my diesel van, so I'm no perfect example of what it is to be a change maker for the environment and society either, but I do the best I can through my business.
I think that's a really good point as well, isn't it? Because I feel like when you start looking and say, oh, okay, I want to be better at this. I don't want to be leaving such a massive carbon footprint. I don't want to be doing this or that. And it kind of goes on. And then you're like, oh, but if I do this thing, I'm going to be doing that. And then it kind of all starts to spiral and you get totally overwhelmed by it. And you're like, actually, okay, what can I even do? So I think that's really important that you've touched upon being human within it. And actually, you can't always be perfect within trying your best.
No, and what might be right for that year may change as well as new knowledge comes in as we evolve, going, oh, actually, that thing you thought that was great for the environment and everybody's bought actually isn't so good. And we can also live in fear of that inaction. And, this is the thing about take some action, learn from it. It may be right or wrong, but as long as you learn, and then it is, what works for you. So, I've come from St Austell today. So you could jump on the train, but actually the easier pathway for me was to the one day a week I do drive. I've planned everything around yourselves, coming into Truro, lined up a load of meetings after this, clustered it all together, used my time wisely.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, with the cost of living crisis and that, it's just being sensible. And ultimately, I think, for me, having empathy with our environment and being kind to ourselves and the environment will lead to sort of betterment. But we are going through this, really struggle time. And going back to taking action, no matter what it is, whether it's just how good it is. And I've used this before. You help somebody who looks like they're struggling with their shopping. I say, I'll help you to the car or something like that. And it, they might be going, who is this person helping me? What is their intention? Mm-hmm. But actually, it's just genuine. I just want to help. And then afterwards, you just get like that little buzz of kind of like, I don't know whether it's dopamine or serotonin going.
It's one of them.
Yeah, it's one of them.
Or it's endorphins.
Yeah,
which one?
Endorphins probably. And then you get that little buzz and going, and then, I'm a big believer in playing it forwards as well.
And butterfly effect as well. I experienced this like firsthand the other day. So I think I was in Costa at one point, and this woman just had the most gorgeous shade of hair, and I was like, gosh, I love your hair.
Yeah.
And then like 10 minutes passed by, she was like, oh, thank you, I haven't had a compliment in so long, that's really lovely.
Yeah.
And then she left, and then about 5-10 minutes later, a woman behind me said, oh, I love your makeup today. Your makeup. And I was like, well, look at that. That was like really fast, but I was just like, that's really lovely. And then it just goes on, doesn't it? But it's funny, you're subconsciously, especially, you can have such an incredible impact on people without even realizing it.
You do those small acts of kindness and stuff like that. And there's a wonderful book I read years ago called Save the World for a Fiver, and it was just like 30 pages, well, maybe more, 50 pages, and each one just had a little thing. One page was just go and give these cards out to your local neighbours to say who you are and introduce yourself and stuff like that. Another one was here's some seeds to plant, just sort of really simple things. Go and find some wild land, plant some trees, And so I really liked that it was in this affordable action space, and so it's not necessarily always got to be like at one point eco was always considered, and is, I guess still is, like a superior pound in a certain way, both what it represents as an possibility for earnings in the future, but also like people used to say to Lee, oh, you should charge more for what you do. But then I was like, well, then that makes me less accessible as an organisation for people learning what we do. And although we do graphic design is just a friendly, like fun way of getting under the skin in a relationship with a client. And we produce, say, the work they want, a brochure for Divine or, working with Bernardo's or something like that. But actually what we're in is the art of change. So then we're in there going, oh, well, have you thought about what you're doing with your team for happiness and well-being? Or have you thought about what you buy for your business, and maybe we could help you? It's not our specialism, but could we help you with like a procurement policy? Or
so there's almost like a big part of what you do is advising. Advising people to change. And again, that makes sense with your design for change. So it all kind of comes together. A question that I wanted to ask you, kind of rolling off the back of what we were just saying, is quite often the eco-friendly or the good for the planet or the safe option is usually much more expensive.
Exactly.
Even if you're going shopping, and you want to get like something gluten-free, or like even if it's just like basic things that will make you feel better, or help to save the environment, they're so often out of people's budget or too expensive. In comparison, you might go to Lidl and find the same pack of I don't know, cashew nuts for some price or something.
Oh, I bought cashew nuts there last night. It's
well, there you go.
£1.50 versus £3 or £4. Yeah.
Bargain.
Yeah.
But like you might go to somewhere that's like more of an eco-friendly place or an organic grown thing.
Yeah.
And it's a huge amount more. But yeah, so what's your kind of perspective on products specifically being way more expensive if they're helping the environment?
Yeah, so it's a couple of different ways. It's like, by producing in own country, it can be very much more expensive, and things where products could come from another country, but they're not paying a fair, just wage to those. So, not saying eco products will do that, but that's why products are kind of we're used to cheapness, aren't we, and kind of thing. And but that's down the product chain. We're relying on someone else to produce them. Then there's, do I actually need that product? And so. And also, if I buy something, in my mentality, if I buy something, so I always do do I need it? Do I really, really need this product? Do I want those potatoes or those potatoes or whatever kind of thing? And so for me, it's always a choice about, what have I got that I can afford? And then what do I believe in? So for me, it might be that I don't go organic, but I'll go to a local veg producer if I'm in St Austell, one, to support their business, even if I only buy a few things and I get the rest from a supermarket. So I just make informed choices, but I guess I'm in a privileged space to allow me to do that. And I live quite a lean life as well, just because I don't like clutter and things. But it's probably my age has taken me to a place where I was like, I don't need this, I don't need that, and things. And I've got this kind of for me, Maya, it's this kind of buy well once. Yeah. So I'm lucky that I could maybe invest more, like the solar.
Yes.
But I've made a plan that it's going to last longer. And by buying something more expensive, I've also got more care to it. So I make sure I look after it. So historically, I've always washed on cold or 20 degrees. And everyone's going, oh, yeah, it's amazing if you do that. So, well, that's how I've always washed. And I've noticed that I might have the same T-shirt as a friend, and within a year, that T-shirt for them is gone. And my T-shirt 5 years later is still going strong. And so it's just those things. That might just be a £20 T-shirt, but I've seen that, and I've seen it also with eco-wear, where somebody washes on high temperature with eco clothes, and I don't, and it starts to degrade quicker. So mine things. So I think a lot of it is when we buy well, and maybe this is different to food kind of thing. But with products, it could last longer. And obviously, we're seeing a massive repair movement now as well, with companies like Finisterre having Fix It. And, I think repair cafes will hopefully, in my optimistic space, will become a natural part of the high street.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that, I've just had this thought that, years and years ago, it's only happened since sort of the Industrial Revolution, really, with sort of mass production, where everything's become quite disposable, hasn't it? Whereas years ago, you had a cobbler and stuff. So if your shoes broke, you'd go and get your shoes fixed, or you would have shoes made for you. And it's like now, actually, I would probably be really interested in doing that, but they're nowhere. Really, there aren't any cobblers anymore because of mass production has just phased all of these incredible things out. So do you think that things like that are going to come back? You think about repair cafes, also repair cafe.
Well, really, it's a cobbler or anything, but I would say a repair cafe could be a place that has multiple types of repair in it. And ultimately, in other countries, this happens. It's just, for the Western world, we go, well, it's £20 to re-heel a pair of boots, or I can get a new pair of boots for £35.
Well, that's it, yeah.
What do I do? Whereas, when I went to university, my dad had Doc Martens from the 70s, which I took on, and he looked after them well. I did not look after them well, and they kind of deteriorated really quickly. But so then when I bought my next boots, so my last boots are like 20 years old, and I go, there's, mostly you're finding like the markets and stuff, you'll still find a cobbler there and things, and obviously got like Timpson and other brands exist. So I think it's just a rise in what we were used to do. But the problem goes back to your question before, is because not many people are using it, it's expensive. And the same when I first started in the design for change arena back in the early 2000s, recycled paper to print our stuff on was like double the price of other papers. And a lot of clients go, oh, it's a bit expensive. And I was like, well, it's about investing in the planet and da-da-da. And actually, if we do this and maybe don't just print one thing at a time, we do a couple of things all on the same sheet, we can optimize the use. So I kind of started to learn some basic facts that if we use A-sized paper, it uses 87% of the paper over like non-A-sized papers, so only 13% waste. So I got quite nerdy with all my little facts.
No, that's good though. That's good. You've got to do it. You've got to get the details.
And then relaying that to clients, and then like turning the clients, well, actually, by using recycled paper saves landfill, wood, water, energy, CO2. So it's quite a savings. So we started to report on it. But as more people started to get into it, and our printers were like, oh, wow, actually, we're getting quite a demand for the stuff now, the price came down. And so, and like anything, like like a house wine in a restaurant. You've got the kind of cheap but nice wine that's, maybe affordable. So we had that with paper. And then if you wanted something like really sexy and exciting, like for a Surface Against Sewage campaign once, I used the only paper in the world that's made by using seaweed harvested from fragile
amazing.
marine environments. It's called Alga Carta. That paper's 7 times the price of another paper.
Oh, okay.
But because it also had a message for the plastic-free project we're doing with Surface Against Sewage, it kind of got the story out there because people were interested in the paper and the fact they were going for plastic-free community. So for me, it's that kind of like art of like what's right for the situation. And as demand increases, hopefully price goes down. Obviously, we're in a cost of living crisis. So for me, like, years ago, I bought some Nudie jeans. So Nudie, super eco, about £100, so expensive. But they offer repair. But the repair was kind of a little bit problematic because it was like, if you're in London, you could drop them in, but there's no Nudie Jeans official store here.
Oh.
So I could get them online. But since then, they've done like, you can send it back and things like that. They also were really sweet. They sent out a fixing sewing kit for free. But that's not my forte.
Nope.
Mum. And so I
They
need
always
help
fix
there.
it, don't they? They're on that.
Yeah, so I think there's a skills for us, and what can we do? Whether that's growing vegetables in the garden and learning about that. I'm rubbish with vegetables, but I grow certain things, so potatoes nice and easy. And so just adjusting our lifestyle, and I think the interesting thing about the cost of living crisis will be like, what do we remove and what do we keep? What do we conserve and what do we need to invest in for ourselves while maintaining heat, healthy life as much as possible. So it is a thought, and I think the way for me, Maya, is it's quite a fast thought now. My brain's quite ADHD-like, and it just goes straight to that point. Right. And then so it's quite a gut, I'm going to do that, and then I figured the rest out afterwards. And it's okay to fail as well, isn't it? And learn from it. So, but yeah, if you talk to someone like Hugo Tagholm from Surfs Against Sewage, we've had many conversations about like this kind of social divide that's actually happening through consumerism, plastic, those that can afford, say, Waitrose, and those that are kind of like, actually, I need to go to Pound, I need to, go to a food bank or something like that and things. So, it'd be interesting to see how we make it that all of society has a fair, equitable share of all things, kind of thing.
I really like that, and it's really refreshing to hear. Actually, it's really nice to hear that. I just love the premise behind what you're doing. I think that it's a really good one, and I think the way that also even when you're working with people, you're trying to kind of convince them that actually there is a better way to do this and you can do that, and hopefully they sort of listen, and then that kind of goes on, that butterfly effect that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and I know I need to stop talking, but it's time. But also that optimism that I think through creativity, and this is creative design, is anything like this has got creativity at the heart. It's a friendlier, more optimistic way, rather than going in and go, you're going to die. You need to to a business. So you've got to stop doing all your polluting things, because that's not going to happen either. So it's kind of working with organisations and stuff like that in proactive ways that over a period of time we can make a difference.
Amazing. So one of the things you're here to talk about today is, after this wonderful, it was great talking about them, really important points. So, One Blue Voice.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we live in Cornwall. We're very lucky that the ocean is on our doorstep, and it, looks relatively clean. It might not be, through various pollutions, washes, and stuff that gets dumped in there, but it looks happy and abundant. But actually, the ocean is in, massive crisis, as we're probably seeing, as well as, what we're seeing environmentally all over the world. Too much plastic in the ocean, overfishing, and lots of other things happening, as well as the ocean's heating up. And so the ocean, in a way, doesn't have a voice. It's only if we take action for it. So working with around the world, well, it's called the Ocean Race, like an 11th Hour and other partners. Yesterday we launched One Blue Voice, which is basically giving a voice through individual activism and petitions to kind of make a difference to the future of what the ocean's health can be. And we need to be doing it now. So basically in September 2023, what we're doing with One Blue Voice will kind of be delivered at the UN conference. So,
wow.
Not by us, not by us.
Okay, I was going to say, that's big. That's amazing.
No. We're like the creative partner in this. So, like the graphics, the socials, but also as an advisor as well. What can this be? How do we get people on board and bring in our critical friends? So it was, as always, with everything in our social and environmental times, it's all about working together. No one individual, one business or one government can do it. We've got to be interdependent, collaborative, and forget about our egos to take action.
And the ocean is so important. I haven't watched it, and I need to watch it. Do you know what I'm going to say? The Netflix one.
Seaspiracy.
Yes.
Yes.
Should I watch it?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think all of them. I think again, it's knowledge, and then taking our own action points is so important. And until we see these things, and obviously, you know, with any documentary or film and stuff, it's taken from one person's perspective for an audience, isn't it? So, like, my opinions are what I deem are right. They might not be right for anybody else, kind of thing. And whether they would work for somebody else. But Seaspiracy has got some really interesting things. So I love prawns, okay? I love prawns. I love a good old-fashioned...
Who doesn't? Come on.
I love a good...
The sauce.
Yeah. I love a good old-fashioned prawn, cocktail. And as kids, that was like a special treat, like once a month, you know, from my parents and stuff like that and things. So Chinese and a prawn cocktail night with kind of the once a month special, like, oh, I can't wait. And watch the film, I was like, I'm never going to eat prawn again.
No.
Or I'm going to know where my prawns come from. And I've completely now look at, even as an eco-conscious consumer, I wasn't looking at that detail. And now when I'm there going, all right, so actually buying local is good because the money keeps in the economy and getting like prawns from our own seeds and stuff like that. But I've stopped kind of having stuff that might have come from, you know, overseas.
Yes.
And I'll go for cold water. It doesn't mean they're exactly right, but I just think it's better. And what you saw in Seaspiracy was just what they feed the prawns. It's like, yeah. And even like learning things like, I didn't realise the colour in salmon isn't the colour of salmon.
Don't say that.
I know.
Don't say that.
And the same with, pink stuff that goes into food. So I have, over the years, kind of gone, so I've stopped eating.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not a vegan or vegetarian. I'm kind of like a low meat eater. So
yeah, I kind of do a similar thing with that. I prefer eating, like, gluten-free makes me feel really good. Yeah. Generally, I feel, I'm awake. I feel this much energy right now. This is great. And I feel like when I was sort of pescatarian for a while. Yeah. And then I heard about the fish situation, and I was like, okay, so eating fish now, they don't recommend you have the same amount of servings as you used to because the amount of mercury.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's unreal. The fact that our pollution has gotten to the point where literally animals now are not as safe to eat anymore is a huge red flag, isn't it? Yeah,
and then again, the less optimistic things as well is that kind of thing that, you know, plastic is being found in beer, in bottled water, in umbilical cord, you know, all sorts of our human life cycle with nature now. And so, again, I think it's that kind of where we can is like actually by supporting going down to, you know, like I said, Meva or something, and going to a local fishmonger or something like that, if you like those things. So
it's quite nice though, isn't it? But it does always feel like a treat. You're always like, I'm going to go to the local one.
Yeah.
Or like the butchers.
Yeah.
And it is actually really expensive. It really, really is. Like, my mum went, she got the most amazing food from there. And she made this curry, and it was like nothing I've ever had. I was like, wow, this tastes incredible. And it's all local. And it does taste better. Yeah. But it is that treat for me. Like that. And it's you know, it's hard. But anyway, let's move on from that one. But super, super interesting stuff and really important.
And with the One Blue Voice, it's kind of what we're asking is just people to put themselves forward and sign their voice. And just put their name to it. They need 50,000 people, individuals to sign. So we're kind of just getting it out there. And the more we sign, the more sort of, you know...
Let's plug that then.
Yes.
Where can they do it?
Well, let's go to the One Blue Summit. One Blue Summit. That's something else that's happening in Bristol. Okay. The onebluevoice.net website. And we'll be posting on Leap's profiles, on the Ocean Race, and all the partners will be posting. So it launched yesterday. It's a global campaign, and it ties in. It's kind of around also the race, you know, to sort out the problems that we have, not just in the ocean, but, you know, society and environmentally as a whole. But this is focused on the rights of the ocean and giving a voice. And there's other organisations, you know, we're not the only organisation doing it. Steps Against Sewage, you know, Hugo Tagholm was out at the UN Global Conference for Ways in Lisbon a couple of weeks ago. So there's lots of motions happening.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's all exciting because it's all coming to a head again.
Yeah, we got to, you know, get away. You know, we're in an ecological and environmental and social crisis, and
Yes.
we've got to all work together. So small bits that you and I could do to the big bits which governments, and that's slow. But again, we could get overwhelmed by all this, and it goes back to taking a action that suits you, that you feel that you can do, and then maybe then take another action.
And being human with that. If
Yeah.
you make a mistake, you make a mistake.
Exactly.
But just follow through with it. So,
Yeah.
Good Fest 2022, where, when, what?
So good fest is like, so one of our commitments through Leap is to really open up conversations for all on change, whether that be micro change or global change, and what we could be part of as in our individualism to the businesses we work with, our friendships and stuff like that. And so Good Fest was born out of the idea about creating a festival that is around conversation, but the speakers are all talking about anything from social, environmental issues, from tiny habits to ocean rights to the housing crisis and things like that. But
So is it like a good TED talk? Like a good, good action all coming together?
Yeah. A space for 120 people to meet once a year, get to know each other, and maybe be inspired to, I've heard of people changing their jobs, like getting
Wow.
So one guy was working with people like Disney and that, and afterwards, he already had it in his head, he's like, actually, I don't feel like I'm making a difference with Disney, I'm just getting a good paycheck. And so he reformatted his business. We went cycling the other day, so like 4 years after the first one he went to in 2019, and he's like, I'm out, I'm working for the UN, I'm working with Water Bear. So Water Bear is like an eco version of Netflix that when you watch, they give a donation for everything you watch back to the environment and social causes. So it's quite a nice
that's a good one.
streaming platform. And with Good Fest, so it's September the 29th and 30th.
Okay.
We'll congregate at Bedruthen Hotel, so we can't afford a beach at the moment. So it was always, we want it to be on a beach one day, but they're quite expensive. And then you've got tide and stuff like that. So we're close to the beach at Bedruthen.
Okay.
And what we've got is a series of talks and workshops. So we've got like the Yella Mule, who's the marketing director for Patagonia, Europe, Africa and Asia.
Wow.
So Yella's really cool, and they're going to talk about, one of the things, we don't know the whole thing, but Patagonia don't use the word sustainability within their language. They only use the word responsibility, and it's how they work, with their supply chain, and how they work with the people that consume their products and stuff like that. And as an activist brand, Patagonia, like anything's always working on itself. It's always a cycle of improvement, but at the same time, they lobby governments, they redistribute tax to help people in impoverished areas of the world
really
and stuff
good.
like that. So we've got Yella coming, and then we've got people like Amy Clark, who's going to be talking around. She's an unbelievable powerhouse of brilliance around how finance can help out society by investing in places that need real, true help. So what is place-based investment over standard types of investment and things. So we've got a conversation with her on sustainable tourism and housing and finance. We got Dan Burgess coming, and Dan Burgess he's got a couple of things, a podcast called Spaceship Earth. He's got a wonderful thing called Stories of Life, which all throughout Glastonbury this year on the pyramid stage, his stories for life were being shown in between the acts and stuff like that. So Dan's coming down. He's going to be doing a 2-hour workshop, which we don't know what it's going to be yet. We left him to sort of openly kind of work on it, but probably around unstuckness.
Okay.
So how to get unstuck and how to be happy and treating the world as if it was your family and things. So the idea is it's kind of like there's so much diversity in our speakers that it kind of there's something for everyone, and your synaptic connections go bang, and you're by the sea, so you can just go.
Oh, it's such a. Honestly, the sea is amazing for just feeling refreshed and healing.
Yes.
After a really bad breakup, my dad, I don't know why he did it, but it made so much sense to me now. But he always took me to the beach. Yeah. And it's just such an amazing space, isn't it? But
yeah.
What else? So what other work have you kind of been doing? Let's talk about activism. Let's kind of start to finish up on those kind of things.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's like a constant flow, and it's kind of like if you looked at my week, it's kind of like a pinball machine in action. Sometimes I get overwhelmed as well, and that's where I have to get to see. But so Chaos were there with us and did helped us out brilliantly. We ran Boardroom 2030 at the tail end of April or May. And Boardroom 2030 was what was a boardroom look like in 2030, and who needs it to be at the table and at the table now, which is youth voices. Let's stop listening to white 50-year-old men like me and stuff like that, and start actually listening to those that will be in places of power and leading businesses in the future. But let's not wait for them either. So we had a beautiful day that was kind of orchestrated around having youth. We didn't tell the audience that they would have 2 young people, young voices, which are like 18 to 30, we call as young voices, on each table to kind of then start quizzing about the roles of business, environment, society, as well as doing some role play on stage with Eden's leadership team and a youth board there. Now, I'm always in the art of change. So although I'm a designer, it's really designing things that, again, spark interest and change and positivity. And so what was really interesting for me with Boardroom 2030 is just how brilliant the young voices were and how much they opened up people's minds. So in all my years of trying to create change, this has happened really fast. So I've had businesses go to that event and just go, just wanted you to know, we've taken this to board level, thought it was brilliant, we're going to appoint a youth board. And I'm like, wow. But also thinking beyond in the fact that, what happens generally with a young person is people go, oh, we can pay them less. There's that kind of like...
That is a thing.
Yeah.
That is a thing.
And if you're an advisor, whether you're somebody that's been in business, I can understand if somebody's been running, a huge global business and they've got that experience, a young person there, but there should be a fair comparison in wage, or make it a fair level playing field. And actually everybody, if it's so that the young person and the business leader that is your advisor both get 200 quid or whatever and have those open conversations. So what was really nice was to hear, and this was Rodders actually, our wonderful Cornish cottage cream people. Rodders literally said, we're going to look at correct remuneration for a youth board. So we had that, and then the tech sector in Cornwall said, oh, we'd like to use a youth board. And then I had I've got a meeting next week with the director of the Institute of Directors on Guernsey. I'm not
so
going
exciting.
there. Saying, could we bring this to Guernsey? So it's like, oh, it's not even my job to run events on kind of youth voices. But again, I get excited about any act of change. So generally we're doing that, supporting places, pushing Good Fest forward. And then I kind of mentor, coach. I have quite a lot of young people sort of come to us and go, can you look at our folios? We've just taken on a Romanian designer that was training in Cornwall. I did a portfolio review and then she said, oh, can I... when you like a company, how do you work for them?
Like an internship or something?
Just ask. She said, oh, can I come and work for you? And
that's amazing.
So she's doing 3 months with us, paid interning for the summer.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to kind of start to wrap up now.
Right,
we've only got a minute left. So as quick as you can, really. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do it? How can they speak to you, get involved? Goodfest, all of that? Yeah,
so Goodfest, it's just goodfestcornwall.com. We're still working on a ticket for those that might have barriers to coming, but at the moment there's, a basic ticket that will get you, to come and to all the talks and 3 meals and stuff like that. And you make your own way there. I'm Matt.Hocking on Instagram, so that's kind of where I tend to do most of the messages. I'm obviously on LinkedIn, and on Twitter I'm Leapness. And if you follow Leap Socials, which is made by Leap, you'll see a lot of the campaigns and stuff. So the work we've just done with Bernardo's, the awards we just won, and also the One Blue Voice campaign. Amazing. So, well, thank you so much for taking time to come in with us today, Matt, and it's great to have you back, and you're always up to so much, and we really thank you for it. Thank you. So, thanks for having me, and thank you for listening to me. All right then, bye for now.